Okay, so as people are joining, I think we can get going because we obviously want to make the most of the session that we have together. So good day, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining another installment of the GPI webinar series. I'm Genevieve Halptrani. I'm the Community of Practice Lead for GPI, and I have the honor of chairing the session today. We have a very exciting webinar lined up, which commemorates International Literacy Day, which took place on the 8th of September. But before we kick off with this webinar, we wanted to take a moment and look ahead to October, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. We'd like to invite you to add your voice to our awareness campaign by reflecting on parental health and parental mental health and indicating what you think could support parents' mental health. And so there is a link on the screen, and we will pop it in the chat as well as people join. I think Mahi has just done that. And we're not going to pause for this, so you can just provide insight as we continue with the session. And thank you for your contribution to this campaign. And now we can get back to today's webinar. As indicated, this webinar will focus on the importance of early literacy development. Encouraging early literacy through reading, storytelling, and engaging with books sets the stage for a child's future success and the enjoyment of learning. And so before I introduce our speakers today, there are just a few housekeeping rules that I'd like to highlight. So please note that this event will be recorded and it will be made publicly available. To avoid any disruptions, only speakers, cameras, and microphones will be active during the session. And if time allows, and I know the team has put it together that time will allow, there will be a Q&A session following the speakers' presentations. But please ensure that if you have any questions, you can enter it in the Q&A section as highlighted on the screen. There's those shapes that indicates where you'd find the Q&A. So now I'd like to give a warm welcome to our speakers today. And with us today, we have Zach Mabusu, who leads and supports the IDEMS team to implement project activities. Zach has experience implementing innovative, student-centered educational programs and learning technologies that turns today's classroom into an active learning environment. Mary Ann Muni is a software developer at IDEMS, and she combines the programming and analytical problem-solving abilities, and therefore has played a key role in developing various digital offerings, such as ParentApp for Kids. We also have David Stern, who is the Innovate lead at the GPI, and he leads IDEMS International, a nonprofit focused on innovations in development, education, and mathematical sciences. David also oversees the development of digital parenting tools such as ParentText, ParentChat, and ParentApp. And then finally, we have Marguerite Marlowe, who is a senior researcher in the Department of Global Health at Stellenbosch University. She specializes in implementation and evaluation of programs to improve parenting and child development. And she has more than 10 years experience in implementing shared book reading interventions in resource-constrained settings. I'll now hand over to our speakers to take us through the exciting research that they've brought together today. So over to, I think David is kicking us off.
Yes, very briefly, I will take you through a bit of an overview. And it's really great to be here. We're focusing on literacy, and we're including in that both, of course, reading and writing, but also mathematical literacy, which is really, there's growing recognition of the importance of this in this sort of, in early childhood in particular. And we're going to start today where Marguerite will take us through and sort of explain the importance of literacy. Before we will then go into Marianne starting and Marguerite following, telling us about ParentApp for Kids and how this has integrated book reading. And finally, we're going to have Zach telling us about Early Family Maths app and how this is integrating both literacy and mathematical literacy through book reading with mathematical thinking sort of components integrated. Anyway, I'm not going to take up more time. I'm going to sort of very quickly jump in and hand over to Marguerite, who is going to say, why should we care about literacy? Marguerite.
Thanks, David, and hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here today. So we wanted to focus on literacy today because of the importance of reading and writing, not only as foundational to education and to lifelong learning, but also in terms of being a key enabler to having people access information and making decisions about their lives. And so in this way, literacy really is a right, with every person being deserving of being able to read and write. And the theme for this year's International Literacy Day is focus on multilingual education, and also the focus on literacy to support mutual understanding, social cohesion, and peace. And I think this agenda ties in so well with, the efforts of the GPI and the kind of focus of the parenting field in general, and really thinking about how parents can support their children's learning, development, and relationships. And to support parents in a way that providing support in languages that parents actually speak and understand. So it really kind of the literacy theme and the parenting theme really ties in well together. So despite the importance of literacy, there are really kind of persistent key gaps and challenges. You can go to the next slide, David, in terms of actually improving literacy. And these gaps and challenges are so much more pronounced for children and families in low and middle income country settings. And so here you can see some really kind of concerning statistics around the number of children who cannot read and understand a simple story by primary school, and also that the percentage of adults who are illiterate, such a high percentage of that is women, and that this has really remained unchanged for a very long time. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight the kind of 40% of people globally who do not have access to education in a language that they speak and understand. And so this is a really kind of key barrier in improving literacy and improving people's access to learning. So what will it take to get all children reading? So two provisions are really key. And the first is access to books. There's really robust research showing that even just having one children's book in a home nearly doubles the child's likelihood of being on track in terms of literacy and numeracy. And this study was done across 35 countries of varying income, controlling for maternal education, area of residence. And so just having access to books in the home already makes such a big difference. But we also know that just having access to books in the home won't be enough, and that families and communities need support in terms of engaging with children in book activities from a young age, and that this is really important to support children's oral language development, their pre-reading skills, and then their reading skills. And also then to kind of build a culture of reading and a love for reading, starting very early in the home and in a family context. So we also just wanted to kind of show the value of books. So it's not just about the quantity of books, but it's also the types of books and stories. And we want to make sure that children have access both to mirror stories and window stories. It's really important for children to have access to books that represent, or the way they see themselves reflected back in the book, where the images and the stories are familiar to them, and that help them to kind of understand their own experiences. But then also to have access to books and stories that act as windows, which opens their eyes and their understanding of things that they might not have the opportunity to see in real life. And this is, I think, then again ties in with this year's literacy theme, where it is a way that books can play this role in supporting mutual understanding and to build social cohesion. So if we're thinking about what really stands in the way of improving children's literacy, the first, as we said, is the lack of access to books in the home. It's obviously very costly to print and distribute books to multiple families and communities, but this is still a really important barrier to improving literacy. And then also the types of books. So there's limited access to books that are written in the local languages or in children's mother tongue, and that really have kind of relevant stories and imagery that really speak to children's experiences. So this is also something important that needs to be improved. And then we also see that in many contexts, there really isn't much understanding around the benefits of using books with very young children or babies, and that people often associate book activities and reading with older children. And there's really, really strong research that shows the importance of this for young children. And so this is something that needs to be kind of sensitized and supported and encouraged. And then often when adults or caregivers can't read themselves, or they struggle with reading themselves, they think, well, what can I do with a book? I can't read the text, so there isn't really much that I can do to support my child to learn how to read. But this actually isn't true. And there's so much that families and parents and caregivers can do with the book, using the pictures to tell the story, and to have an interaction that's engaging and that supports children's learning. And this doesn't have to rely on the book's written text. There's many, many ways and many kind of techniques that are simple and that parents and caregivers can use to engage children using the book. So how can technology and digital solutions kind of help to overcome some of these barriers? Well, the first is that there are many kind of global digital libraries that have thousands of titles in hundreds of languages, and these books are open source. They can be adapted, translated, and used freely. And so there's this real kind of amazing repository of stories and books that can be used and can be provided to families in local languages. But obviously the cost associated with printing and distributing books is a big challenge. And so digital platforms also offer kind of a way to overcome some of these costs and challenges. You can go to the next slide. You can actually kind of share digital copies of these books with families over platforms like WhatsApp. And alongside that, you can offer guidance for parents in how to use the books by also using avenues that don't rely on the parents actually needing to read. So audio recordings and voice notes, you can use that to kind of show them or explain to them how they can use the book to engage children in playful ways, short kind of video clips or animations, and then also using group chats and remote facilitator support where in-person programs might not be an option. So these kind of digital solutions really offer a very, very promising and useful avenue to overcome some of these barriers.
Thank you, Marguerite. And really, this is sort of positioning us really well for the next part, which is going to be to talk about ParentApp for Kids Tanzania. Because within the Innovate part of GPI, we have been trying to build technologies which leverage open source technologies in different ways to be able to create customizable solutions to support parents. So the focus of ParentApp in general is to be able to digitize the parenting program. And so integrating this into sort of how parents are getting support is exactly where we are aiming to get with the Kids app, to integrate that with the book reading. And it's really great to see the progress which has happened there. And Marianne has been one of the key people working on this. So Marianne, let me hand over to you, and you can then hand over to Marguerite, who has been doing really the hard content work behind this.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to take you briefly how we develop our apps to ensure that they meet the needs of our communities. So first of all, I'm going to start with the scalability. So we design our apps to be scalable for low literacy communities by using audios and videos for accessibility. And an example is in the Kids app, where we have an audio facilitator guide in the book section that help parents with low literacy to engage with their children and also encourage family involvement in the reading process. So this ensures that the app remains effective for users with different literacy levels. Next slide. We also try to ensure that our app adapts to various cultural contexts by incorporating a built-in localization features that allows the adjustments in language and content to align with the local traditions and experiences. And supporting this, we have the IDEMS International Custom Open App Builder platform that enables facilitators and also our partners to customize content for different regions and at the same time actively participate in the development process. So as we design our app, we try to prioritize in having an intuitive and easy to navigate interface that enables parents to seamlessly engage with their children learning regardless of their digital literacy levels. And additionally, we have an open source library that serves as an entry point for the low literacy communities by providing accessible content which help build the digital literacy gaps. So basically what we are trying to do is to support parents in becoming more involved in their children's education. Back to you, Margaret.
Thanks, Marianne. So yeah, we wanted to kind of showcase how the guidance around book activities and shared book reading in ParentApp for Kids really focuses on what parents can do with interactions that does not necessarily rely on the written text. So some examples are, describing the pictures to the child or asking questions about the pictures and the story and the characters, mimicking sounds and actions from the story, connecting the pictures that they see and the story to familiar things in the child's own life. So the book really is just a tool to have a particular kind of interaction between the parent and the child, and across this to do that in a fun, engaging, and playful way. So ParentApp for Kids Tanzania is really exciting for us because this is where we are actually for the first time kind of bringing together a lot of the parenting guidance that features across a lot of the GPI projects and in Parenting for Lifelong Health, and actually bringing it together in one place, merging the parenting guidance and the shared reading guidance. So in each of the kind of sessions or the modules within ParentApp for Kids, there is a focus on some of the parenting guidance, which is then reinforced through the shared reading guidance. And this happens across all the modules. So for example, in every module, you would have how you would use books to connect, how you can use books to play, how you can use books to talk to your child about different things, how you can use books to create a positive interaction and experience. On the next slide, I just wanted to show you kind of how this, a little bit more detail on how this works. So for example, in the Connect module, which really focuses on making time to connect with your child, to build a strong and positive relationship, the parenting kind of feature or focus is on spending one-on-one time together, giving your child attention in a positive way, and then also how you can use book activities to connect and spend quality time together, to really focus on what your child is interested in and to respond to that. And then similarly in the Create model, which focuses on a positive and supportive environment that parents can create for their children to learn in, is focusing on the praise and positive instructions aspect of PLH and the parenting content, but then reinforcing this with how you can do this during book activities. So how you can respond in a positive way to what the child is talking about as you go through the book. And so this kind of shows how the parenting guidance is then reinforced through the book activities and the guidance provided for the book activities. So we've got over 50 books that's currently in the ParentApp for Kids library, and we've spent a lot of time thinking about which books to select and which books to include. And these are just a couple to show the kind of the range of books. A lot of our books comes from Book Dash, which is just the most incredible organization. It's a South African organization that create kind of African books and stories. And so we've selected a lot of the books to also then reinforce the parenting themes that we have as part of the program. So talking about feelings and emotions, helping children to understand what happens, but also showing stories where parents and children interact in positive ways. So it kind of the books work at different levels to kind of complement what the program as a whole is trying to achieve. So we wanted to show you just one example from one of the modules. So each module or each kind of week's topic, let's say, has a particular theme. So for example, in this week that you can see here on the screen, the focus is on play. And then there's a module that the parents can work through. It kind of goes through these different sections on why is play important, how do you actually do it, And then every module has this aspect on the power of play or the power of connect. And we've included this because we want this to be the place where parents can actually see, how does this benefit them? Well, how does this make their parenting easier? And how does this actually contribute to what they're trying to do? And then every module has a section on then using books to do this particular thing. And then once they've gone through the module, there are different home activities. So here you can see at the bottom, you can then do reading home activities, you can do play home activities, and then there's also self-care or relax activities for the caregiver. And so every module has a kind of a subsection of books that are linked to that particular module. And on the next slide, you can see, okay, wait, so here we kind of show just some of the examples in the module is how you would use books to play. On the left-hand side, you can see that, you know, the guidance is to use it and to use the pictures and to use a lively animated voice for different voices for different characters as you talk about the pictures. And then if you listen to the audio, that actually shows an example of how you would talk about these pictures in a lively and playful way. And then the two kind of screens on the right-hand side, you can see how you can use the story and the pictures to mimic sounds from the story or to mimic actions from the story. And so this is really a way to bring the story and the pictures to life for the child. All right, so here you can see that there is, for example, for the play module, there are 4 books that are linked to this particular module. And we've also chosen books, I think all 4 of these are from Book Dash, that also enforce the kind of the playful topic or theme. So it's books that showcase parents supporting their children to use their imaginations or to have fun together. And so again, the kind of the topics are reinforced in different ways. And then for the play activities, we've also have 3 learning through play activities that are linked to every module. For example, here for play, it's for the parent to think about something, a play or something, a game that they really enjoyed as a child, and to encourage them to play that with their own child, to act out a story together. And then the shadow movie is actually one of Lego's learning through play activities. So we provide guidance on how to actually do that activity with children.
Thank you so much, Marguerite. And I want to take this moment to just sort of say, if there are any questions on this, please put them into the questions and answer session. And this can be taken in the discussion. If there's anything urgent, we could take it now quickly. But I also want to get ready to move on to our next part. And so what I'd like to just take a few minutes on is the innovation part of this as part of GPI. The idea of using the technology and the opportunities that digital provides to be able to combine the parenting programs with other activities and bring the activities together is really central to what I would like to see from Innovate. I believe that we should be worried about what we lose when we have a digital program rather than a face-to-face program. But we should also be aware of the opportunities that come from being able to use digital. It's not just the opportunities of scale, it's also the opportunities of integration. And this is something where I'm really delighted with what's happened with ParentApp for Kids and how they've integrated the book reading component with the activities and self-care. But I'm also really excited by what's happened with another piece of innovation, which has happened around early family math, where the book reading has been integrated with sort of mathematical thinking for early children. And so if there aren't any urgent questions, I'm ready to hand over to Zach to move on to the early family maths app. Should I have any urgent questions come in? I'm afraid I don't have access. I can't see the questions and answers part.
There's one question, David, it might be for you, Marguerite, about if these books are translated into Swahili, and if so, how was that managed?
Sure. So yes, all the books have been translated into Swahili. We've got a local team in Tanzania who we've worked with a previous project, which was a WhatsApp-based a shared reading program where we sent digital books to parents over WhatsApp. And so the team in Tanzania have translated all the book text into Swahili. And I can maybe ask Marianne just to talk about the technical side of that and how that was managed.
So after these translations are done, we upload them. We upload the content before the English version in Crowdin, and this is translated by the team in Tanzania using the Crowdin.
And Crowdin is a sort of translation platform which sort of helps to manage that translation so it can then be integrated back into the app. Thank you. That's a really good question. And maybe just very quickly, one of the things with the way these technologies are built is translating into other languages is something where the same processes can be used for the books as for the app itself. And so there is a sort of uniform process which can help with that translation. Okay, thank you for the question. I will hand over to Zach now as we jump into Early Family Maths app.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Marguerite and Marianne, for sharing about the amazing work that you're doing about ParentApp for kids in Tanzania. So I would like to share about Early Family Math app. So I'll talk about what is Early Family Math app, and then I'll share about a pilot study that we've conducted in Kenya and some of the results that are coming out of that pilot study. So Marguerite began by highlighting what it will take to get all children reading. And she said two very important things. The first one, she mentioned increasing access to the quantity and quality of literacy content that children are exposed to before they join school. And then the second thing that she mentioned was supporting parents, which is what is happening with the ParentApp for kids, and also what we are doing with Early Family Math app. So Early Family Math app is about these two things that have been highlighted by Marguerite. So what Early Family Math app does is that it offers offline, fun, engaging activities and storybooks that encourage parents, empowers caregivers to engage in mathematical literacy conversations with their children before they join school. Now on the screen there, you can see a QR code, and I would like you to take your device and be able to scan that code to access the app, so that you have the app installed on your device like this and exploit a bit. And so this app has been supported by Global Parenting Initiative, and it promotes mathematical literacy through play and through fun, engaging activities. And it was developed through a collaboration between IDEMS International and a US-based nonprofit called Early Family Math. So if you've installed the app, you can see the homepage as depicted on the right-hand side of the slide. And what the app has, it has storybooks, as you can see. It has interactive games, it has puzzles, it has activities, and investigations that parents and children can be able to explore together. So this app really facilitates that shared reading and activities between caregivers and their child. So a parent can get into the app, pick a story, read the story to the kid, or look at some of the pictures in the story and have a conversation with the kids. So these activities are adapted and contextualized within family experiences. For example, we have a sorting activity that is based on laundry time, where a parent and a child are encouraged to sort clothes by color and size. You can also see the picture there that is really relating to like someone digging, which is something that kids can really relate to in their home rural community environments. And we do also have some other stories that includes maybe a counting activity that is based on counting the number of cats and so forth and so on. So David, if you move to the next slide. Yes, so this yes, so this slide really like digs into into the storybook features of the app, and you can see this has a very simple story. His hair was too short, and that is depicted as a fast reading, where a parent can be able to read to the child, and the child can talk about the picture and what they can see in the picture, and just make time to connect with the child. But in addition to that, you can see that this content involves a concept of measurement and comparison, which are concepts of mathematical literacy, suggesting that this horse length is being evaluated relative to a particular standard or a particular measure of a whole within their community. And so these activities really reflect on maths concepts like length and measurement and proportionality. Now, in addition to just that short story text, if you see on that second screen, you can see there is comments below there that give ideas to parents or caregivers on what are some of the comments they can be able to make, or what are some of the questions they can be able to ask their child, or to be able to have those guiding questions that will spark curiosity among the learners, among the children as they go through that that particular text. If you go to the next slide, David. Great. So we conducted a pilot study in Kenya. It was an 8-week pilot study. We had 81 parents and caregivers and guardians joining in, and they formed a community where they were sharing about how they're interacting with the app and how they are working with their children on different activities within the app. And we selected 3 different counties: Nairobi, which is kind of like an urban setting, and then Kisumu and Kakamega, which are sort of like rural settings. So the objective of this pilot study was, 1, to explore how early family math app can encourage playful learning between parents and their children. The second objective is wanted to find out how well EFM app can help parents and children engage in playful math activities. And the third objective was to assess the suitability of this adapted content for the Kenyan context and for the communities that we were working with. And then lastly, we know that parents have anxiety over math. Maybe they didn't do well in math at school, or they just fear math. So we wanted to check, like, is using the early family math app for playful parent-child interaction affect the parents' views about the app itself on the content about mathematical literacy. So, and we collected data using surveys. We did interviews with individual parents. We also conducted focus group discussions. And we also collected data through the WhatsApp conversations that parents were always having and engaging with one another on the WhatsApp group that they have. So next slide is showing some of the things that were like coming out of what the parents were really saying. And what you can see on the screen is a quote from one of the parents. And this parent was from Nairobi, and this was during an interview. And this parent said, because they find it playful, they find it easier, because as they learn, as we do questions, we do activities, we interact with, of course, they just do it by themselves. I have to join in even as they ask questions. There is that unity because now we are playful together, so improve unity. And this is what this parent had to say. So there are two things that I really draw out from this this quote from this parent. One is the fact that as the caregiver or the parent, like they participate as equal partners in this. They are learning together. They are working together. Parents ask questions, and also the kids also ask questions. And sometimes they solve the activities together and they have fun together. But also the thing that is really highlighted is that unity, which strengthens the relationship between the parent and the child. And that unity allows parents to become active participants in the child's educational journey. You find that 2-year-olds can be able to identify shapes and colors, and they're able to tell them to their parents, and parents begin to recognize that, yes, actually, this kid is now beginning to recognize patterns of colors, or this kid is able to start counting, for example. This is another set of quotes, and maybe I'll just read that first quote. And one of the parents says, "It has made me also to know the specific level up to which my child can understand an activity and how he understands the stories. I have got to know him more." And this parent really acknowledges that early family math app has helped them understand their child learning progress in the process. And we have a lot of other amazing comments by parents that come out to support this kind of learnings and showing that deeper relationship because of them interacting together and understanding together and spending quality time together. Next slide. Great. So this impactful work wouldn't have been possible without the support of Global Parenting Initiative. Marianne has mentioned about IDEMS building upon the app structure developed by IDEMS, enabling IDEMS to test and implement some of these tools within communities. And we are also proud to have contributed to a range of apps, including those of ParentApp of the kids that is being used in Tanzania, ParentApp for teens, PFR that is being used in Uganda, Facilitator app, the Wash app, and this early family math app. So our team has played diverse roles in each of the apps development, from building from scratch to testing and adapting existing ones. But I must say that this wouldn't have necessarily happened without the mentorship that has happened from IDEMS, which has been invaluable in building our capacity of our staff to develop, test, and pilot these apps. Thank you, and back to you, David.
Thank you so much, Zach. And I'd like to, just before we jump into the discussion, just sort of reiterate this fact that the technologies to build these are open technologies now. You've heard the list that IDEMS has got involved in of different apps which can be built with different content, adapting that content to different contexts and different environments. That's central to how we believe technology should be built. It shouldn't be built by a group outside somewhere for everyone. It needs to be built locally everywhere. And this is the heart of what we see as part of the GPI Innovate stream of creating not only the technologies to be used to be impactful, but also the mechanisms for building technology that is impactful. And the last thing I just have to finish on, and because I'm a mathematician at heart, I was originally a mathematician, it is important to recognize as part of literacy the role of this mathematical literacy going in. In one of the few long-term studies I've seen which look at sort of the influences in STEM education at the end of high school, one of the biggest influences is the mathematical thinking ability entering into preschool. And of course, that is influenced by the parent-child or the caregiver-child interaction before preschool, which is of course influenced, and this is the really exciting part that the research points to, mostly by the fact that parents recognize that they should be engaging their children in thinking about colors, about patterns, about numbers. You know, that's all it takes. If parents, if caregivers are aware that they should be doing this sort of simple mathematical thinking things, and anyone can do them. These don't need high levels of mathematical literacy. But if you engage young children in this way, it gives them that real opportunity further on in life towards STEM, towards the science subjects. And so that's what's so exciting. And I want to sort of leave that last thought with really the really wonderful work which we've seen from the IDEMS team, from Marguerite and her team at Stellenbosch, and enter into the discussion. And so what's happened in terms of the questions and answers?
Thanks so much, David, Marguerite, Mary-Ann, and Zach. There are a few questions listed, and I'm not sure why you can't see them, but I'm happy to just go through them. So the second question, obviously, you already answered Lauren's question. This question was, how do you teach parents? Sorry, how do you reach parents? Also, what about parents who don't have smartphones? Yeah.
So who's that for? Do you think is that for?
I mean, I can comment quickly about what about parents who don't have smartphones, and this is something where the importance of books and book reading is absolutely clear. But if we think about trying to get books to parents, I think there are no cheaper ways to do so at scale than through smartphone technologies, which are now not quite omnipresent, but they are present in most societies. If that's not done at an individual level, we've got experience with groups having a phone between a group. And I can imagine that there's ways to sort of do that and to use that. So you don't need necessarily an individual device. But I don't believe there's any cheaper way to get books into people's hands than through smartphone technology. That's my personal view. Marguerite, you may have a different view.
Marguerite, you can go ahead. I see you are unmuted. Do you want to add to that, or should we move to the next question?
Yeah, I think we can move to the next question.
Sure.
So, sorry, let me
go
just
ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah, let me just comment about the second question that David has talked about, and then I'll come back to the first question. So what we were working with a group of 81 parents, and we were very specific that they should have smartphones. However, some of the parents reported that because they found the app useful to them, they would get parents who do not have smartphones and congregate around their smartphone and be able to share some of the stories together, and then go back and have activities with their kids. So that's just one way that I've seen the parents that we have piloted the app. In terms of like how to teach parents, this is a really good question, because even myself, I am a parent, and I think it is very horrifying to try to do something that you're not like really an expert. Like, how do you teach a kid who is 2 years a concept? And it is worse, for example, if you have anxiety, for example, around a math topic. But I don't know if you've managed to download the app, but when you download the app, for example, that story on a very tall man, there is like an introduction of the story itself, and then the author, and then there is guidance for the adult reader. So for example, for this one, it has 3 sections, like how do you guide a kid who is yet to start talking, and a kid who has just started to talk, and those who can be able to read, talk, and do that. So when you go down a step further, there is a little guidance to the parent that tells the parent to, you know, like talk to their child before they can talk or even understand words. And it provides very simple guidance. For example, point at something, name and describe things that you see around the house, such as shapes and colors, and make comparisons and quantities. So this guidance, the parents have found it very useful to just start conversations, and then over time, they start getting confidence to do activities with their children. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. The next question comes from Paulina. How organizations promoting positive parenting access these apps? So how do organizations promoting positive parenting access these apps, basically?
It's a really good question. I think it's something which we're very lucky that the charity Parenting for Lifelong Health is really thinking about this. These are really very new apps. They've just come out. They've just been created. They're being trialed in research at the moment. The Early Family Maths app, you've been given a web link that can be shared, but there's also, that's available globally on the Play Store, and I believe now on the Apple Store as well, the App Store. And so some of these are just available. But even if it's just available, that's not the best way for people to use it. The best way to use it is to have it adapted to your context and to have a version which is tailored to your context. And that's what PLH, the charity, is now looking to find ways to do, to get these things adapted to individual countries and contexts, which is by far the best way for these to work. That balance between having something globally available and having something which is tailored to a particular context is really difficult. But I think if you are an organization that wants these apps, they're open, they're available, and we are trying to make them easier and easier to adapt. It is a lot of work still at the moment if you'd have a new context, but we think over time that we can reduce that work, and particularly once it's already been adapted to a country, for an organization to adapt it to their needs, that could be a much lesser task. And so our hope is that these apps are going to become highly tailored, adapted apps by local organizations and communities. If you're fortunate to be in Kenya or East Africa, work with IDEMS. They have the skills to tailor it, to adapt it for you. Yeah, that is a very quick answer.
Thanks so much, David. Next comment and question. So this is from Julia Narish from the book dash that you guys have just spoken about. It's amazing to see so many book dash books used in ParentApp and the early maths, family maths app. What a great extension of our reach, thanks to the open license. And then her question, are there plans to link physical books into the programs at all, ideally within public systems?
Marguerite, should I let you take that?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Julia. It's so great that you're here. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's still so important to give children access to actual physical books, just for them to be able to engage with print. And this is also obviously a very important part of literacy development. So we really see the digital books as kind of playing this bridging function where it can help to increase access. And what we're doing with ParentApp for Kids in Tanzania is we're actually testing kind of two different versions of delivering this kind of intervention. So the one would be where families, they go through the app, they get access to the app, and actually comparing that to what happens when parents have access to the app, but they also have opportunities to meet in person with a facilitator for, you know, a couple of in-person sessions where they will have physical books to kind of demonstrate and to practice with. And so that's kind of the starting point where we are now. In some of the other countries we're doing where, you know, within health facilities or within kind of community centers, there would be books available that could be shared between families. So yeah, it's an important thing to keep thinking about, and how these kind of digital support can be provided alongside actual access to real books.
Maybe can I just add very quickly that I really see the importance of books, not just books, but physical, you know, for the maths learning in different ways, physical aids. But I really love the fact that if you have the digital version as your baseline, then what you see is that the book becomes added value, and it's clear that it will add value. The physical components will add value, but they are more expensive. And so what I really hope is that the digital ones will mean that we can get scalability. And where it can be afforded, people will want the best, which is to have the physical books as well. That would be how I would always see this.
And I think also, you know, with when we do actual, printing distribution programs with children's books, sometimes, it's only possible to give families 1 or 2 books. Or 2 actual books. And with these digital platforms, they get access to so many more stories. And I think that is really promising. So we can really increase the number of books and stories that families have access to by also providing it through digital platforms.
Thanks, David and Marguerite. There's 3 more questions. This is from Jennifer Mayume. Is it possible to help a 10-year-old child who is struggling with reading and affecting their comprehension? And do we get the apps? She's asking, do we get the apps? I think David already spoke a bit about this.
Well, except that I think Marguerite, is more the expert on reading for 10-year-olds. So Marguerite, please, can I hand that one to you?
Sure. So I think it's a good question, and I don't think it's one thing. It's multiple things across multiple time points. And so just kind of as a bit of background, so ParentApp for Kids really focuses on the children 9 and younger. So it really is about encouraging parents and families to start a culture of book sharing and reading very early on, and to use the books to increase children's interactions that support their oral language development, support them to actually engage with books. And all of these things then help to lead up to children potentially not struggling with reading as they enter school. And so it's kind of going a couple of steps back to try and kind of prevent those issues from happening at an earlier stage.
But I think, Marguerite, correct me if I'm wrong, these libraries of open books are a good place that could be where people could be accessing tools which they could potentially use to help even at the 10-year-old level and above. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think maybe I'll just say one more thing about, in general, what I see. Part of what I feel that Marguerite has explained with sort of the role of ParentApp for Kids, sort of avoiding this need by offering that support earlier, is also about sort of curation for parents who wouldn't necessarily otherwise do this. That there are these wonderful libraries of things out there, but they can also be a bit overwhelming for parents who aren't in that way inclined. And so what I do believe that things like ParentApp for Kids should help with is to take parents on that journey, to help them to be able to access and use these other tools in the future. And I would argue that this is one of the roles in general that I hope within GPI Innovate we've sort of been working towards, is finding ways to sort of bridge, particularly in sort of low digital literacy, to people to be able to access tools, because there's a wealth of tools out there if you know what to look for and how to look.
Thank you, David. Another question, can this app be accessible worldwide? I think we've already answered that. So it's available on Play Store. And
well, let me just clarify that the ParentApp for Kids is not yet available. It's even within Tanzania, it's not yet available. And when it will be, my understanding is it will only be released in Tanzania first while the trial is going on. The Early Family Maths app, that has been released globally. It doesn't have a trial on it at the moment, and therefore it is something which has been able to be released. The accompaniment of the research does mean that we need to be a little bit careful about the release in other contexts.
Thanks, David. And then I know that Mahia shared the book dash app details in the comment section as well, so you can get access there. The Maths app is there as well. And then finally, and this is a comment, and this is from Tandi, keep an eye on the PLH localization toolkit page on our website, that's the PLH website. As we develop resources for localization, we load them here as a toolkit that is freely available. Currently, we have a full toolkit for localizing parent text, but the ParentApp toolkit is coming soon. So there's some great news as well for local context. Yeah, I think, so I've gone through all of the questions. I'm just checking if there's anything in the comments. No, there isn't. And maybe before we wrap up, just to again thank the team. And I think you've also highlighted this in your presentations, you know, that Lego Foundation has been quite supportive in the research that's been conducted. So thank you to them as well for that. So thanks again. And I'm sure if there's people they want to know more, they can reach out to you directly. The information is on the GPI website. And in about a week or so, the recording will be made available as well. And I see Mach is just dropping some more resources in the chat as well. So thanks again to everyone. We've actually saved a few minutes in the day. So thanks to the teams for preparing so well as well. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for the questions.